experiences.
When I was working at UNICEF, I met this young Nepali lady, and she was really, really amazing and different attitude from any other countries I've met. So I felt like there is something different in Nepal.
Expressing views.
And I feel like if we teach the students to use the internet and share their story, the world could learn about Nepali people. And I think that's very important.
Safalta Talkies every Thursday at 7 p.m. only on Radio Safalta 103.4. Insight on different subjects with different guests.
I'm a teacher from Chicago and I love to mountain bike. So I love coming to Nepal and traveling all over the world and riding mountain bikes wherever I can.
Safalta Talkies, the only global outreach program. Good evening, Pokhara. You're listening to Radio Safalta 103.4, the best station in the town, and I'm your own host, Santosh Bandari. I'm back again on the Safalta Talkies with a different guest here, Hannah from United States of America. In the Safalta Talkies, we basically talk with the foreigners on different subjects because they've been doing a lot of things here in Nepal or abroad. And as a foreigner, we make a sense that there are a lot of things that they can share with us. On the same note, first of all, I'd like to welcome Hannah on our show. Yes, Hannah, you're really welcome on our show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
We are excited too. It's a both-way process. So tell me how you are.
I'm doing well. I am a Peace Corps volunteer. I serve in the Midwestern region of Nepal, and I've been here, actually, April 3rd is my 2-year anniversary of being in Nepal. So I've really found a sense of home here. I love it. It's been the most challenging, beautiful, meaningful, sometimes frustrating, but a really, really special time to spend here. So I'm very grateful. So
you told me organization called Peace Corps. Mm-hmm. Can you put some light on that?
Yeah, so Peace Corps is a part of the U.S. government. It's an organization that sends volunteers all around the world working in different sectors, and it's a partnership between the U.S. and then local governments. So Peace Corps Nepal is a partnership between the U.S. government and the Nepali government, and we have about 70, well actually a new group just came, so we're over 100 volunteers in Nepal now. We currently work in 7 districts, but that's shifting with this new group. And we have a food security program and then a new education program. And we send volunteers to rural communities there are 3 goals of Peace Corps. The first is to provide training and technical support to countries, but then goal 2 and goal 3 are really cultural exchange. So it's about me coming here and learning Nepali culture, learning from you, and then also me sharing part of my culture and my life in America.
I really have to appreciate the learning phase. As American, you came all the way to Nepal, and you're learning. At the same time, I guess you are teaching also. You were exploring also. Yes. There are a lot of parts we can join.
Yes.
So it's a collaboration between the American government and the Nepalese government.
Correct.
So 100 people are they're all dispersed all over the Nepal.
Yes, so a new group of volunteers just came. I think it's a total of 50 volunteers. So they're outside of Kathmandu doing a 3-month training. When we first arrive in country, we have a 3-month language intensive and then also technical skills. So it really felt like being in farm camp. I'd spend my mornings and my language sessions learning Nepali grammar and trying to get a grasp on the language, and then hike through a potato field, down a river, across a bridge, wow. And go and learn about improved compost and fruit tree cultivation and Nepal-specific nutrient-sensitive agriculture. So there are 50 volunteers doing that right now outside of Kathmandu, and then there are about 60 of us who we are operating in 7 districts right now throughout Nepal, all doing work in food security.
But that's great. That's great to hear. And I guess this keeps on coming in the future also, yes?
Mm-hmm, yes.
It's not going to stop, I guess.
Yeah, they're growing the program. So it's exciting. It's exciting. When I came in, the program was much smaller, and you see it growing. And it's changing a lot, but it also is really exciting for me because I see the scope of my work and trying to pass it on to these future generations of Peace Corps volunteers, and it's exciting to think how kind of broad this work can spread in Nepal.
So what is your time duration here in Nepal? Are you assigned as a time, or there's no time limit, or it's up to you?
Yeah, so the program is 27 months. We
27
have
months.
3 months of that training outside of Kathmandu, and then 2 months in our permanent site in a rural community. And I'm passing my 2-year anniversary now, so I have about 2.5 months left in Nepal.
So your mission is kind of getting completed.
I mean, I don't think that I could spend a lifetime here. I really could. It will be very bittersweet to leave because I'm very happy here, and there's still so much work I want to do. So mission complete, no, but maybe this leg of the mission.
To be continued.
To be continued, exactly. Yes.
So let's be very precise about what you're doing here. Mm-hmm. So tell me something about your job as a Peace Corps in Nepal.
Yes.
Where are you stationed here?
So I'm stationed in Palpa district, and I live in a rural community. I'm about a 40-minute walk from a bigger bazaar, and I came as a food security volunteer, so that's kind of focused on nutrient-sensitive agriculture, so helping people augment and enrich their household nutrition through kitchen gardens and fruit tree cultivation, and then also a component of nutrition education. But it's really interesting the way that, as Peace Corps volunteers, we come in with a framework and training and an idea of what we'd like to accomplish in our communities. But really, for it to be successful and sustainable, it has to meet the needs of the community and the needs that my community identified themselves. And so as I integrated and built relationships and was let into these intimate and really sweet moments in people's lives, I discovered that there was a really big need in menstrual health and management.
Yes.
A lot of women expressed to me just their lack of education and their thirst for knowledge to better understand and make informed decisions about their bodies. And so as I was kind of let in on that aspect of female experience here, the focus of my work really shifted, and I've spent the last few years talking about periods and reusable pads, and menstrual health has really been my focus.
Okay. That's a very interesting subject you are talking. There's a shift you are making here is very interesting because you spoke about menstrual health management, right? Which is, I think it's a need of the time to get to know about it in a better way.
Yeah.
Where I think you've already experienced here the condition of being in the period, and how the treatment and a lot of things you know about. So as you've been working in the same field, what actually is menstrual health management?
It like in my community or in general?
Any community in general, actually, you just can join the both and say up to your understanding.
So menstrual health is basically when I teach it, or the programming I've built around menstrual health and management, menstrual health is the understanding of the biological process that makes us menstruate. Yes. There are so many women who have had children and been menstruating for decades, but don't understand the biological process that's taking place. And when you think about cultural practices that are kind of steeped in stigmatizing menstruation, not having there's a perception that menstrual blood is dirty or juto or it's this kind of like dirty, shameful thing. And so to kind of inform that perspective with knowledge and understanding, to show that menstrual blood is actually like the most rich, nourishing, life-giving substance in our uterus. Every month women build up this thick layer of this nutritious fluid, and when a baby's conceived and a fetus is created, it goes into implants in the side of that menstrual fluid, because that's where there's going to be Suraksha and Phyta and health. And so menstrual health that education is a really important component, not only in kind of understanding the science behind your body, but also helping women to kind of reframe and reclaim some pride in their reproductive system, because how amazing is women's ability to give life.
Yes.
So that's kind of what we focus on in menstrual health. And then management is kind of forging these menstrual management solutions. So that can be tampons, which we use in the United States. That can be reusable silicone cups, like a Diva cup or a Moon cup, and also pads, like disposable pads that you buy in the market. But something that I really realized when I was having conversations with women was that there was a lack of affordable, accessible management solutions in my community. For a lot of young girls will buy disposable pads; their parents will give them, but there is a financial burden to that. There's not a ton of disposable income for a lot of families, and to spend 100 to 200 rupees each month on pads can be burdensome. But then there's also the trend of using kind of dirty or old cloth and just folding it up in your underwear, and that can pose health problems, that can have a risk of infection. But it also really limits a woman's mobility, because if you're walking around and you have this kind of unsecured fabric in your underwear, you'll leak. And so women are reluctant to sit down at friends' houses or to go out and work. I've talked to so many women that say, "Oh, I'm on my period, I can't ride the bus, I'm homebound for the next 5 days." So I've worked in my community and with amazing counterparts to try and kind of create solutions that meet the needs of women. And so that's what this work's all been about.
Yeah. You've been great. You've been doing great, I guess. And I wish you a very good luck in this case. But as you came on agriculture sector as a food and nutrition, and you made a shift, why were you so interested in the subject? Because there's a shift. What did you really see? What attracted you into into this menstruation of the people of the village or Nepal?
Well, I think
what made you feel that this is the subject that I should put some light into?
Well, especially my first month of service, when I first landed in community, I didn't really speak Nepali. No one in my community really speaks English. No. I have a slight background in agriculture, but going around to these farmers who have been farming for generations and who are way more experienced in agriculture than I was, I had a hard time feeling like I had something to offer. And I think that's, a lot of volunteers have that experience in your first months at site. But so as I was going around and kind of trying to drum up some activities surrounding agriculture, I'm from a family of women. I have 2 sisters. My grandmother is the matriarch of the family. I studied women and gender studies in college, so I've always been really interested in gender and equality and women's health. And so I would just have conversations with didis and friends naturally about their periods and what menstruation practices they observe and their method of blood capture, what they use during their period, because coming from the United States, I didn't know. And the more I had these conversations, the more I realized that there was such a need and a thirst and enthusiasm for better solutions. And I can only tell you how many times I've walked around my community, peddling an improved compost training and had people, be really polite and kind to me because they care, but not really that interested. And the moment I start talking about menstruation and reusable pads, you just see women's eyes light up. Okay, Babu, go get fabric. We're sewing these pads now. Yeah. And so I think there definitely some of my own interests kind of led me to this work, but really seeing the need and the reaction, like the thirst that these women have just to engage in this work, it's like I had to follow that. I had to follow it.
So you are providing kind of education out there, but let me be very clear about it's just informal education. So do you think we need to provide formal education on this subject also?
Absolutely. 100%. And a big part of my work is I teach menstrual health and management in schools.
Schools.
In schools.
You go to schools.
Yes, I go to schools and I teach menstrual health and management.
So you
there.
demonstrate.
We have it's wonderful. I work with community counterparts. So I have a woman who works at the health post, and then 2 female community health volunteers that I actually organized a training in Pokhara for 40 people from all over Nepal, and they came and learned about menstrual health and management. And so now we kind of go out and travel in the community as a team, and we go to schools and we do a 2-hour theoretical presentation all on the biological process of menstruation, what's actually going on in our bodies, and then we have a 2-hour session where we teach girls to sew reusable pads.
So is it being advantageous? Not only for you, for the people of the community. Are they learning something, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Because that'll be a motivation for you, right?
Yeah.
Because you've given all your time, energy on the subject, and it really makes a sense that they learn something now.
That's the goal. That's absolutely the goal. And I've had a lot of anecdotal moments where, someone who was in a class that I taught 6 months ago, I'll run into them in the bazaar and we'll be talking about menstruation, and someone will ask a question about like, oh, well, where does the egg come from? And then, this 14-year-old girl will say, well, it comes from the ovary, and this is what we learned. So it does.
Well, that's inspiring, huh?
Yeah, it is. Every time I see that, I just go, yes. It was retained. So I think that, it's absolutely essential. I think that understanding our bodies so that we can make informed decisions about our health, particularly our sexual and reproductive health, and especially being young girls, I think that is foundational and basic to what public education should be. And I think that, that there are different schools, there are different approaches to sex education. And I think that menstruation could and should absolutely be a focus of that.
So the sex education and menstruation, are they related?
Absolutely.
Perfectly related.
Yeah, perfectly related. Because if you think, menstruation is an essential part of reproduction. And learning how to care for and keep our womb healthy is going to make us, have more mobility. It's just more convenient. It's more comfortable. But then also, those skills that young girls develop when they start menstruating in their early teens, that's a system of care that they can carry forward throughout their reproductive lives. So yeah, I think it's just foundational. It's so important.
That's very good to hear.
Yeah.
Hannah. A lot of things that you have given here from your personal or professionally or personally. As you've been here in Nepal for so long, I just want to give you a scenario, right? It's a very orthodox society. Don't you agree? Yes, do you agree?
I do.
And in the cities, let's say even worse in the villages, where the still reach of the people is not that much as compared to the cities.
Yes.
A lot of bannings are there. A lot of things are banned for the women who are in the period. They are not able to do the normal family work or household activities because they are considered impure.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
You have had this experience.
Yeah, I've had this experience, and I live in a Nepali host family, and have experienced it in my host family as well.
So, according to you, how can we solve this? Is it due to the lack of education? Is it due to the lack of something else? They are in the shadow, right? Actually, look, when someone is in the period in America, it doesn't happen like that. So why in Nepal? Is it? So can you?
Yeah.
How can we solve this thing?
Well, you asked the 2-year question.
It makes sense, right? It makes sense because it's the most important thing that I want to know. Because I have experienced as a Nepali, I have experienced these things myself in my house, in my community.
Yeah.
Although it's Pokhara, who cares about it?
Yeah.
And it's all, everyone have felt it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've spent 2 years grappling with that question, and so I will
still battling.
Still grappling. I have a feeling that will be a lifelong process, but I'll give you the best of what my understanding is now. It's particularly difficult thing for me to navigate as a foreigner, because I come into this Nepali community.
True.
My family is Nepali, my friends are Nepali, my whole work is I'm really kind of
connected to the Nepalese.
Exactly, and I think it's not my role as a Peace Corps volunteer or as a foreigner to come in and say this practice is wrong. I don't feel it's my role to pass judgment or evaluative judgment on menstruation practices.
But the judgment can be in the form of change,
Well, exactly. Well, and that's a difficult thing to navigate. I feel like if I were a Nepali woman, like that's something I could maybe be more vocal about. But being a foreigner, it's important. I don't see that as my role to kind of condemn these menstruation practices. Instead, I use health education and menstrual management solutions as points of intervention in that conversation. And so instead, as a way of combating stigma with knowledge, combating stigma with understanding. Instead of saying to someone, oh, your menstrual blood isn't impure, you shouldn't think that, explain what menstrual blood is and how not only do I not perceive it as impure, but it is life. For without menstrual blood, without menstruation, without the uterine lining, there would be no children, there would be no birth. So using education as a way to challenge some of those inherited concepts of what menstruation is, and then also through sewing reusable pads, creating space for women to have those conversations amongst themselves. And especially, I think this is something a lot of foreigners working in a Nepali context deal with, but I speak Nepali, I really try my best with Nepali, but I will never be able to have the depth that Nepali women can speak with themselves. And so when we organize, we call them sewing circles. So we come together and we sew pads, and I'll ask questions. I'll ask, what was your first period like? What did your family practice during your first period? How do you feel about your period? What are the menstruation practices that you follow in your own life? And it's amazing. You can just tell that women have, carried this psychological and material burden of menstruation their whole lives. And as soon as there's a designated space and even just the slightest prompt to talk about it, they just want to share. Exactly, spark. And so those conversations about menstruation practices being, oppressive or difficult or how they don't want to follow, that doesn't come from me. I just try and create the space for women to connect and talk about them
so that they
themselves.
Can tell their thing.
Exactly.
So you put the spark, they burn the fire.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so maybe I dig the little fire pit, I create the space.
Yeah.
And my gosh, the women I've worked with, there's such fire. And so that's really the inspiring thing too.
That's very good. I really appreciate whatever you're doing here, Anna. So are the people really being cooperative with you? Because it's a very orthodox society, right? And when you're in the village, and there are a lot of males also.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult when the male part of the community is not helping you.
Yeah.
Might be the condition is that the women are they know what you are doing. They appreciate you also, but that's not over.
Yeah,
it's half done.
Yeah,
when the male of the community is not that helpful. So how are the male treating you,
It's actually great. The schools that I've worked in both have male headmasters, and they have been completely supportive of this initiative. And I think there's been a lot of publicity of certain instances of deaths happening from chowpatty lately over the last couple of years. And Nepal also recently passed a law that outlaws chowpatty. So I think that the awareness is starting, and even in kind of the INGO or the development kind of sector, menstrual health and management, particularly in relation to girls' education, is becoming a focus. So I think that change is starting, and you're right. There's definitely still work or still kind of time that needs to pass before it's adopted on the ground. I think maybe the hardest thing about working with men or what I've run into is the perception that this won't benefit them. It's kind of I've run into a lot like, oh yes, you do all this work with women, but what about me? What are you doing to help me?
Being very personal, right?
Yeah, and so that can be difficult to navigate, but then you go into conversations of, having a girl that finishes school, and, the rates of, what's the saying? If you educate a boy, you educate the individual. If you educate a girl, you educate the community, the family. And so kind of trying to, yes, we are focusing specifically on menstruation and reusable pads. That's this narrow focus that I've spent my last 2 years on. But then kind of zooming out 10, 20, 30 years and hoping that not only, the confidence that girls have to take control of their health and make informed decisions about their bodies, but also, the removing those limitations on mobility will impact the community as a whole.
Yeah, so you think, personally, you think the scenario or the concept is changing, or there's a shift in the concept?
I think,
right, but the margin is very less, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
Because that has been implanted for a long period of time, and it's in their subconscious mind.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And if you look at it, oftentimes, it's women that are reinforcing and carrying forward these menstruation practices. I actually find that more so than men. I've talked to a lot of men that don't, say, I don't really care, whatever my wife wants to do, but it's women. It's the sense of duty and the sense of maintaining family purity.
Yes, women can understand women, right?
Yes,
that's the best understanding we have.
Yeah,
but it's different here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that work, that I think that in terms of who's actually perpetuating this practice, it's been really rewarding to work with women and see those wheels turning and these concepts changing. And it doesn't happen overnight, but you hope that, a girl that you meet on her first period when she's 13, and if we can equip her with knowledge of her body and methods to manage her period and also really take control and ownership of her health, that down the line her daughter, maybe her daughter will have a different relationship with menstruation.
That's so it's going to the generation of the future also. Yeah. That I like your thinking of making someone to learn things and that is passed on to the generation. So we'll talk about a few things about maintaining the hygiene. So what? How can we be very careful in maintaining the hygiene when you are in a period, Hannah?
Yes.
Yes. How can we maintain? Because hygiene is one of the most important things.
Yes.
That we should take into consideration.
Absolutely. So the first thing I would say is how you are managing what you're keeping to absorb that blood is really important. So a lot of people use disposable pads, which are great and hygienic, and as long as really important to change your pads every 6 hours. But I've also met a lot of women who use old cloths or dhotis and just fold it and keep it in their underwear to capture that blood. And when you use cotton or different fabrics, they can really be a harbor for bacteria. Cotton does not dry as well as other fabrics, and having a place of friction and heat, you can get rashes.
Infections.
It can cause yeast infections, urinary tract infections. So I think what you're keeping, next to your body to capture blood is really important. So you want to make sure it's either a disposable pad or flannel fallotin fabric.
Oh, fallotin, yeah.
Fallotin fabric.
That's a local language.
Yeah.
I was confused of what.
So
because at the same time you are speaking English and again you are using Nepali, so sometimes there's a mix.
Yes, well, I say fallotin way more than I say flannel, but that is the fabric that we promote for making reusable pads because it dries quickly, it doesn't hold on to bacteria, and it's also really soft, so you won't get rashes. So what fabric you're using next to your body is really important. And then I'd say the other thing that's most important is changing your pads often. You should change your pads about every 6 hours. And then for reusable pads, something that's so great, especially for families that have like a little more financial stress, when the types of pads that we sew last for 1 year. So you can wear it, wash it, and then we always say dry it in the sun because gamle kiera murcha. The sun kills bacteria. So so there are small things you can do. Also, washing yourself every day. If it's with water, that's great. If you can wash yourself externally with soap, that's even better. But do not use soap on the interior of your vagina. And so just kind of like keeping yourself clean, dry, and having the right fabrics next to your body really helps with infection, and it's also way more comfortable.
But is it really impure? No, right?
No.
It's just a biological process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a normal biological process. And without this biological process, you wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here.
No one would be here.
Exactly.
I say women are the source of the creation here.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that really every great achievement can be attributed to a woman because she gave birth to it.
Nature is also a woman because it has the power to produce and give,
Yes, absolutely. And so that's exactly what we try and talk about when we have these conceptions of menstruation that are so steeped in shame and isolation and being dirty and impure. And that's what people have been told since their first period. They carry that throughout their reproductive lives. But kind of reclaiming menstruation as this thing that is powerful and important and something that should be celebrated and accommodated and all these things. That's the big part. So
as long as you take care of the hygiene, you don't have any issues, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, and everybody's different, and every menstrual cycle is different. So when we get up in front of a mother's group or in front of a class of kids, or even when I'm just talking about this on the bus next to someone, you go through the menstrual cycle and you say this is your chakra. Most women's cycle is 28 days, but every body is different. And so I think that's where education and then different menstrual management solutions, a variety, that's where it really comes into play because it's how to make informed decisions that meet your needs. And so that's what the goal is.
So do you know the cycle of the moon and the cycle of the woman period is same? Do you know that? It takes 27 to 28 days for a moon cycle to be completed. And anyone who is in a period of this period who gets into the menstrual cycle in 28 days, that's a perfect. So moon and women, they have a perfect connection. Sun and man, they have a connection. This is on a spiritual level, right?
Yes. Well, and some people call their menstruation their moon cycle. So that's exactly
it proves it, right?
Yes, absolutely. I like that. Okay, I'm going to look up at the moon tonight and think.
So if the period is according to the cycle of the moon, it shows you are in a perfect period. That shows because sometimes those who are in a period are sometimes getting 5 days less, 5 days more, or the exact date keep on varying.
Yes.
That's I was just sharing my thing, so that could help you. Okay. So when you talk about these things in the society, as orthodox, it's a very orthodox society, and there are a lot of superstitions that exist still in Nepal. They don't feel shy to share their feelings. Because we're talking about the organs, internal organs here, and we really talk about that. Yes?
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to relate that thing.
Yeah.
You as American, maybe, let's say, your society can, don't get me wrong, but American society have that thing.
Yeah.
But when you come, there's a shift in the tradition culture.
Yes.
Don't they feel shy, or do you think they are sharing everything with you?
So there's definitely shyness, for sure, and especially among young girls, I notice. And it's funny because it takes different forms. I've noticed when I work in schools with young girls get really shy and don't want to talk and get really quiet. But then when I work with old, women who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, it becomes in just like rampant laughter and giggling and having a hard time staying attention. So that definitely is a factor or a reality because it's something that is taboo and people aren't used to talking about openly. But I think that's why sewing pads is such a great kind of entry into this topic, or like a great way to create conversation, because everyone, you just sit in the sun and sew pads with your friends, and giving something, to do with your hands while you're starting to kind of unpeel the layers and start to have these more intentional conversations. It's a process, but I think that creating that safe space is really fundamental to. And you can see it too at the beginning of a training. People's body language is so different.
It's stiff.
But it's so different 30 minutes later when they have a needle in one hand and a pad in the other, and they're laughing and talking about what their first period was. So
they're taking it more in a friendly manner.
Exactly, and I think that's
because you are being friendly.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a big component of this work is building community, building space for female networks centered on shared experience. So yeah.
So. I guess the root problem is sometimes the lack of education also, because the girls, they hardly go to school, and if they go to school also, they are not able to maintain that grade because they get married and they go away.
Yeah.
And again, the situation keep on getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
And the other thing is due to the superstition also. I guess you agree with that. So life has become very hard for the Nepalese women, right?
Yeah.
So, is it because of the ignorance? Sometimes, is it because they don't care about it, even if they do, they don't want to take care of it, or is the ignorance level of ignorance is very high in the community people? Because wherever you are staying, you know the mindset there. At least for some time you are there.
Yeah.
Because it depends. The mindset keep on depending on place to place.
Yeah.
But where you are in the place where you are, does ignorance play a vital role there?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And it's, I cannot speak for all of Nepal. I cannot even speak for all of the region I live in. I've had this very narrow sliver of experience in this, in my community. But I've also, this work has spread to 20 communities around Nepal through other volunteers. So you do start to kind of get a bigger picture. And I think the ignorance, it's actually really interesting. I find that oftentimes young girls know more about the biological process of sex and menstruation than their mothers do. I think that nowadays it's starting to be taught more in school, and there's an awareness there. But among older generations that may not have received as much formal education, there is still a big question mark. And can I tell you actually my favorite work day, my favorite moment of working in Nepal. Please. Okay, so I was going down to a village about 20 minutes walk below me, and I have a bunch of Didis and friends that live there. And it was a school day. So I walk down there and I start chatting with my friends. We're all sitting around, and then I see Shristi, who's 11, and she was not in school. She was hanging around. So I started doing why aren't you in school? Why are you bunking? Are you sick? What's wrong? Kind of giving her my interrogation. And her mother turned to me and said, oh, well, Shristi started her period. She can't go to school. And my first reaction was, oh my gosh, congratulations, you're a woman now.
Yes.
Because that was my experience when I started menstruating. I looked at my mother, I looked at my older sister, they menstruated, and I knew that, menstruating for your first time means that you were becoming a woman. And
yes.
So it was this exciting thing where I was becoming like these older women and my older sister who I loved and, looked up to so much. So I told her congratulations, and everyone just started laughing, and they said, oh, why are you congratulating her? Menstruation is dukkha, it's suffering. And so we were...
See, the ignorance?
Well, yeah. Well, and it's the mindset. It's what you've been told from your very first day you bled, that menstruation it's juto, it's fori, it's impure, it's suffering. And so I turned to my Shristi's mother, and I said, oh, well, did you teach her about menstruation? And she said, yes, I taught her everything. For the first 3 days, Lukai Dinu, she was in a dark room and couldn't see the sun for 3 days. And now she's living separately for another 10 days. And she can't touch water. She can't go in the kitchen. She has to shower on this day. She says, I taught her everything. Restrictions. Exactly. So she said, oh, I taught her everything. I said, okay. So you taught her about the menstruation practices. And I said, but did you tell her what menstruation is? And she said no. And then I looked at, my crowd of 10 dear, beloved, strong, beautiful, intelligent Didis, and I said, well, do any of you know what menstruation is? And these women that are in their 30s, have had multiple children, have been menstruating for 2 decades, didn't know what a period was.
Not a thing.
They didn't know. They couldn't say what the biological process was. And so in my trainings, I kind of started out, I get it physical, and I say, okay, everyone take your fist, make a fist, and put your fist up in the air. And so everyone puts their fist up in the air.
Wow.
And then I say, take your fist and hold it here, and we place it on our lower abdomen. And I say, your fist, that is the size of your uterus.
Okay.
And how amazing is it that when we have a baby inside of us, our uterus can expand and it can hold this whole other human, and then after we give birth, it goes back to the size of your fist. And so I did that with my deities, and we were just kind of having a basic conversation about the biology of menstruation. And then I went back the next day, and I had some books and I had some resources, and Srishti and I sat down and we read all about menstruation, and we sewed a reusable pad. And then this was maybe 6 months later, Srishti was helping me cut out some pad patterns for a training from old paper. And it was actually old tests that I took to a school that had questions about menstruation. And as she was cutting out, she was looking at the questions, and she knew every answer to the questions about menstruation.
That means she can make others learn also.
Yes, exactly. But with Srishti, I think of it as the perfect example, because on her very first period, a time where it's scary, you're bleeding. You're not supposed to be bleeding. Bleeding's bad. You're living separately. You're not allowed. You have to live in the dark for 3 days. Your mother's telling you all these things you can't do. Just think about how overwhelming that is. And I see that as kind of the beginning of a lot of this negative kind of perception that a lot of women in Nepal carry throughout this burden they carry throughout their whole reproductive lives. And I really hope by having that conversation that first day with Srishti and equipping her with the knowledge and understanding of what was going on in her body, but then also having those sweet moments where we sat around in a circle of women and laughed and talked about our first periods and sewed pads, and I hope that she has a positive association with that day that carries forward every time she bleeds.
Srishti is not going to forget you. Period.
I hope not. Well,
she's not going to forget you.
Well,
and
I
more
won't
of
forget
it,
Srishti.
more of it, she's going to pass on whatever she has learned to others who are having the same. Obviously, they are going to have same problem also. Yes. I really appreciate that. So, you've been working here for so long. Are you planning to extend your visa more? Or because you're about to, your visa is about to get expired here. Mm-hmm. So, your view, Hannah.
So I will say this loudly and clearly into the mic. I am actively looking for a job. And
Okay.
I won't be extending with Peace Corps, but I am really open to and looking to continue working in Nepal, especially in women's health and particularly sexual reproductive health. So I'm at the point right now where I'm trying to kind of Malaunu something, and I would really love if I can work out a position and also a visa. I would love to stay in Nepal and continue this work.
Well, last but not the least, we still have to talk some more thing about the pad that you sewed. Yes?
Yeah.
I forgot it.
Yes.
Let me catch up you with that. So, what are the best thing that you can use when you're in a period? Means there are pads, there are a lot of things, and you also showed me the pad itself.
Yes.
2 pads.
Yes.
And people might be feeling awkward listening to us, but I really don't care about because we are talking very genuine thing here.
Yeah.
There's no vulgarity.
No.
I don't think there is something we should hide of.
Yeah, it's health.
It's health. We should bring it out.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And see, a guy and a girl is talking on this subject even more. What
Yeah.
could more be beautiful than this?
Absolutely.
So tell me something about the pads that you have made and your knowledge on the pads.
Well,
yes.
I will say that talking about pads is one of my favorite things, so I'll go there.
Because you've been talking about this a lot of times, yes. So I don't want to miss that thing.
My Nepali vocabulary is very tailored to pads. It's very heavy on pads. So I work with two different types of pads. One is a purchased pad from Kathmandu, and it's an organization called Days for Girls produces this pad, and it's reusable and it's beautifully made. I've seen a lot of reusable pads in the States, and the Days for Girls pad is the highest quality I've ever seen. And it's relatively affordable. It costs 155 rupees for one pad, and you get 2 inserts with it. And it lasts for up to 3 years.
3 years?
3 years. So you use it, you wash it, you dry it in the sun, and then you can use it again. So that's one option. And when I've had a couple, I've been a part of a couple of projects where I've written and received funding from a grant. So with that money, I've distributed some pads, also gotten some donated, which has been great. But what I primarily work with is the pad I have right here, and it's sewn from the flannel, the fabric.
So the pad you're sewing here is made by you?
Yes,
Whoa.
made by me.
Whoa.
And to learn, it takes maybe about an hour, but once you learn, it takes 20 minutes to sew. And basically, it's 2 pieces of fabric that are sewed together with a slit on the top. So it kind of makes this pocket. And then in that pocket, you can keep other fabric. So if you're having a day that's lighter, you maybe keep one sheet of fabric, or you don't need the fabric at all. You just use the liner. But if you're having a day where your menstrual flow is rather heavy, you can fold and stack different fabric into this kind of insert, and then it'll be more absorbent. So the whole idea is to create menstrual management solutions that fit women's needs. And women's needs are different. The amount that you bleed on your first day of your cycle versus your third day of your cycle, very different. So it's kind of, imagine it like a Kleenex box with wings that attaches to your underwear, and then you can keep flannel fabric inside to absorb blood.
So you're not only telling the advantages of using a good pad, you're also teaching them how to make it.
Yeah, and that's what we do. You know, I usually go to a mother's group or a school, and we have a spiel about the biology, and then we all learn how to make pads and sit in a circle and do it. It's the best work ever. It's it's so fun.
I know. You're doing what you love to do, right?
Yeah.
And that's the best part of it.
Yeah.
So I just want to present you some data about. It's very useful data.
Okay.
See, there is a restless development study.
Mm-hmm.
It has found that 50.7% of the women believed they would face negative consequences if they are not observed properly, if they don't follow the rules during the period.
Yeah.
See, it's above 50%.
Yeah.
Again, 56.7% think menstruating women should not touch green vegetables because the crop will die. You know it better. I'm just presenting you with some data.
Yeah.
Okay? And that shocked you, man. I was kind of shocked also.
Yeah.
And 50.5% believe they should be confined in a place. I mean, they should place where they eat. They should place not only the place where they eat, the plate where they eat. Mm-hmm. And there should be a bowl they use. Yeah. And there should be a confined to certain place where no one can visit. Yeah. And they are, they feel like we're left behind. Do you think it has some psychological effect on that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because
girls, when they're young, may have that psychological effect more than the women. Do you agree or not? Yes?
Absolutely. And I think that psychological impact on, a girl that's just starting menstruating will inform the way that she perceives her period and her own body for the rest of her life, But, okay, so here's an interesting question. You think, so during a whole woman's life, from your first period to the time you go through menopause, let's say that's 40 years.
40 years.
Or 35 years. How many individual days during that time period do you think a woman spends menstruating?
A lot of times, I guess.
Yeah. So it's about 3,000 days.
See, a lot of times.
3,000 days.
I said a lot of times.
Yeah. Okay, so you were right.
I was not good with the numbers.
Yeah, but you knew. And so when you think about, that's 3,000 days, which I think that's about 8 years. 8 years continuously that a woman is menstruating. And you think for 8 years, a woman has to can't go inside the kitchen, has to eat from a separate plate. You said 55% of women believe that you have to be secluded in a different room. That's 8 years. That is a significant portion of women's lives. And I think that menstrual health and management and this work that we're trying to do is about reclaiming those 3,000 days.
Wow, what a nice concept. Wow. Yeah, it's really enlightening me. I'll let others also know this now.
Well, good. And I think that, like you said, us having this conversation is a part of the work too, because it's
yes, obviously.
Menstruation is so shrouded in stigma and silence and isolation. When you spend that first 2 weeks of your reproductive life in a room by yourself, you're taught that it's something that you have to carry alone. But I think when we open up conversation and see menstruation as an opportunity for connection and sharing rather than isolation and stigma, this is part of that work too.
Wow. So we should be very open to the subject.
Yes.
Not only the females, male also should be equally helpful in taking the subjects very seriously and at the same time very easily also. They should not shrink, they should not be again preoccupied with those thoughts.
Yes.
That's not going to help, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was very good talk from you, Anna. I really appreciate your time and thought out here. So let's talk something else apart from the subject about the food and the place here. Because you have already known that you also know how to speak Nepali in a good way, at least understandable way.
Ali Ansha.
That's more than enough. So how do you like the people? Can you tell me something about the food? What do you do? Cook yourself? What do you eat? Just tell me.
I dream of dal bhat.
Dal bhat man parcha.
Ekdam, malai ekdam man parcha. Din khanchu. So I live with a Nepali host family, and so I eat all of my meals with my Nepali host family, and I am so lucky. My mommy and Bahini make delicious, excellent dal bhat. But it's something, I also work in nutrition, and a big part of the menstrual health and management work that we do is also promoting good nutrition practices. So something that we've worked on is diversifying our diets. So we'll have bhat in the morning and either roti or atto, makaiko atto at night.
Yes.
And my gosh, I just have never been a happier eater, I love Nepali food with all the different achars and chutneys, and you just
varieties, right?
Varieties, and I love using my hand to just construct the perfect bite.
So was it difficult for you in the beginning to eat with your hand? Might be.
Well, so I used to live in India, and so I was used to eating with my hands from that.
Okay.
I love eating with my hands. I really do. I'm sure I don't always look the most graceful.
That's when that's because when you'll get the taste of the food when you touch it and feel it.
And I recently read something that actually, if you're eating with your hand and you're kind of like you're tactilely involved in eating that way, it helps signal to your brain when you get full. So eating with your hand helps forges some type of connection that signals to our bodies that we're full and when we need to stop eating.
The foreigners, they find it very difficult. It's like we using the chopsticks,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's obviously a very difficult thing for us in the beginning to use the chopsticks. Similarly, it might be difficult for the foreigners from anywhere in the world who are used to the spoons, knives, and the forks. But you enjoyed it. And that's the better part.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I encourage anyone that feels intimidated by a plate of dal bhat to just dive in and eat with your hands, because it's just like such a part of Nepali food. Like you're eating your rice, you're eating your lentils. That's so Nepali food, but eating with your hand too. So I think you're taking a part of Nepal with you when you go back. Yes,
a lot of memories, and more of it. You are also leaving the memories to the people of the community also, because they always remember. What do they call you? They have a Nepali name, right?
Yes, my name is CHAMPA.
CHAMPA. Who gave you the name CHAMPA?
So my host mother, when I was living outside of Kathmandu, she named me CHAMPA, and like Mayale.
And didn't you ask her what's the name of it?
Well, I knew it was Champa Chamali. I knew it was
yeah. It's a chubby kind of thing. Yeah.
I'll be a flower. But apparently it's a funny name. But
it's the name of the flower. But
yes, it's the name of flower. But I've come to love my name, and it's cute when kids are trying to bully me. They call me Chamcha, which is funny, and I kind of like the idea of being this young, vital woman named Champa. So. But
it makes a sense. You have left some imprint into the village people.
Yeah.
They're not going to forget you, and from your part also, I think you're not going to forget whatever you have learned. And share what you know here in Nepal.
Absolutely.
And I wish you very best of luck. I hope you will come back again and serve Nepalese people in your terms and conditions, because there are a lot of, as an organization, you need to take care into a lot of consideration of the rules, regulation, the time period of the project, and a lot of things, I guess. So, Hannah, it was very nice talking to you. I really appreciate your thoughts, and more of it. The most important issue about menstruation cycle, you have given the proper education. That is what we should really appreciate you. So, last but not the least, we have a tradition kind of thing to, if ask our guests to play any one song that you like to listen on the end of the show. Any song that you like. Kunai git sunna man, any song, kunai git, kunai gana.
Yes, Angrezi ki Nepali.
Angrezi pani huncha Nepali pani, anything. June pani.
Oh, June pani. Okay, well, the Pixies.
You can speak Nepali now.
I can.
For a time being,
Okay, kun git suna mancha. Okay, let's see. The Pixies. Where is my mind?
Pixies, where is your mind? Where is
my mind?
My mind. So it's Pixies band,
Hajor.
It's American band,
Hajor.
So best band.
Tada, okay, so Malay Aota Nepali song Auncha, Aota Nepali Geet Auncha.
Please gaunus ta.
Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. Tumro Garko Auna Ta Manlag Cha Auna Tada. What is it?
Kukur ko dar lagcha.
Oh yeah, kukur ko dar lagcha. Sim me pani ma jan lebe man garchon ki jindagani ma. So if it was a Nepali song, I think that'd be it.
Well, that's pretty huge popular song here. And again, I have to thank you for remembering that long, in a song way. I'm really happy to meet you and really appreciate your time and thought. I'll play the song for you.
Wonderful.
So at the end of the show, and if possible, we'll play another song for you. Also, Sim Sim Pani Ma that you played, but we'll make sure the Pixies is being played because that's your favorite. It came from you. And yes, we are done with the show today.
Good.
I'd like to thank you again and again. Wishing you the very best of luck in your whole life. Whatever you do, be do in a very proper way. Help others. That's how you get help from others also. Yes. Thank you for listening, people. It was good talking to Hannah. She's a very beautiful and pretty lady also, and she shared a lot of things remaining on a lot of subjects, especially on the menstruation cycle, which is very important topic here in Nepal. For today, we are done, and I promise you we'll come next week with a different guest and talk on a different subject, but on the same time. Till then, have a nice time. Goodbye, Pokhara.
Safalta going international.
It's strange to be the other side of the microphone, but it's great to be also having a voice heard from a foreigner's perspective and
sharing experiences.
When I was working at UNICEF, I met this young Nepali lady, and she was really amazing and different attitude from any other countries I've met. So I felt like there is something different in Nepal.
Expressing views.
And I feel like if we teach the students to use the internet and share their story, the world could learn about Nepali people. And I think that's very important.
Safalta Talkies every Thursday at 7 p.m. only on Radio Safalta 103.4. Insight on different subjects, with different guests.
I'm a teacher from Chicago, and I love to mountain bike. So I love coming to Nepal and traveling all over the world and riding mountain bikes wherever I can.
Safalta Talkies, the only global outreach program.
अब रेडियो प्रस्तुता उद्घोषण कला र नेतृत्वदायी क्षमता वृद्धिका लागि सम्झनुहोस् रेडियो सफलता 103.4 मेगाहर्ज लाई तालिम सञ्चालन भइरहेको छ। सम्पर्क रेडियो